"He wants you there," my sister Donna said, turning the cream-colored envelope over in her hands like she was looking for the part that made sense. She had found it in my mailbox that morning, propped against a grocery circular, addressed in the careful cursive of someone who had practiced the handwriting specifically for this occasion. Donna had brought it inside without asking. She set it on my kitchen table and waited while I read it. The card was ivory. Embossed gold lettering. Marcus Allen Rourke and Brianna Lynn Castellano. Kellner Banquet Hall, Columbus. The second Saturday of the month. Dress code formal. My name was written inside in the same practiced cursive. "We do hope you'll join us to celebrate." I read it twice. I set it down on the table beside my coffee mug. "His mother sent it," I said. "Obviously his mother sent it." Donna crossed her arms. "The question is why?" I looked at the card for another moment. The gold lettering caught the kitchen light. "I'm going," I said. Donna opened her mouth. I picked up my coffee. "I'm going," I said again, and that was the end of that conversation, or the beginning of a longer one that would take the rest of the week to finish. My name is Nora Rourke, though I stopped using that last name 14 months after Marcus left and went back to Vásquez, which was my grandmother's name and the one I should have kept in the first place. I am 36 years old. I manage accounts receivable for a medical supply company out of a home office in the back bedroom of a house on Fairview Street that I have been paying for by myself for 4 years. I am not a dramatic person. I do not tell this story at dinner parties. I have told it in full exactly once to Donna on a Tuesday night after the children were asleep, and even then I kept to the facts and left out the parts that didn't serve anything by being said aloud. Here are the facts. Marcus and I were married for 3 years. The first year was fine. The second year he began to treat our life together the way some people treat a hotel room, comfortable enough while he needed it, but not something he felt any particular obligation to maintain. By the third year I had become a detail in his life rather than the center of it. I managed the house, the finances, the appointments. He managed his opinions about how I was doing all of those things. He left on a Wednesday evening in October. He had a bag already packed. He said he needed space to figure out what he actually wanted. He said he hoped I understood. He walked out and the door closed and I stood in the kitchen for a long time listening to the particular silence of a house after someone has just decided to leave it. I did not know, standing in that kitchen, that I was 8 weeks pregnant. I found out 5 weeks later at Northside Women's Clinic on a gray Thursday morning. I had gone in for what I thought was a routine appointment. Fatigue and nausea I had been attributing to stress. The technician moved the wand across my abdomen and then went quiet in the way that medical professionals go quiet when something on the screen requires a second look. She called in another technician. They looked at the monitor together. Then she turned the screen toward me and showed me 3 heartbeats. I drove home on the interstate in the outside lane going exactly the speed limit with both hands on the wheel and the radio off, and I did not call anyone until I had pulled into the driveway on Fairview Street and sat in the car for 20 minutes first. There are ways to describe the 4 years that followed and none of them are quite right because the accurate version is not a story of hardship or heroism. It is simply the account of a woman who had a great deal to do and did it. I carried the mortgage on Fairview Street. I carried the utilities, the grocery bills, the pediatric appointments, the car insurance, the property taxes. I went back to work full-time when the children were 4 months old, which required the kind of logistical architecture that I will not detail here because the point is not the difficulty, the point is that it held. The pediatric bills in that first year alone came to $4,340. I know because I kept the receipts in a folder in the same drawer as the payment book. I kept the records in a dark blue payment book, Fairview Street address on the front cover, every month entered in my own hand. It was a modest thing, a check register with a waterproof cover, and I filled it in on the first of every month the way other people water plants or lock the back door, because that was the kind of consistency that kept everything from sliding. My sister Donna drove over twice a week and stayed through bedtime on the hard nights. My neighbor Mrs. Patel watched the children on the mornings I had early calls. I built a system the way you build anything, by solving one problem at a time and not looking too far ahead. I did not tell Marcus about the children. This was not a decision I made in anger. I made it the same way I made most decisions in that period, by looking at what I actually knew to be true and working from there. What I knew was this: Marcus had left. He had left without asking whether there was anything he needed to know before he went. He had called once 6 months later to ask whether the mortgage was current, because his name was on an old insurance document he wanted to make sure was handled. I told him the mortgage was current. He said good, that was a relief. He did not ask anything else. I hung up the phone and went back to what I was doing. A man who calls to ask about a mortgage document and does not ask about you is telling you something. I heard it. I filed it. The children grew. Mateo, Lucia, and the one we called B, which was short for Beatriz, after my grandmother on the other side. They grew the way children grow when they are loved without reservation, loudly, hungrily, and with an absolute confidence in the permanence of the people around them that I found, on certain evenings, almost impossible to look at directly. Elaine Rourke called on a Tuesday for days after the envelope arrived. I was at my desk when the phone rang. I recognized the number. I let it ring once more before I answered. "Nora," she said, in the warm managerial tone she had always used with me, the tone that made every sentence sound like a reasonable request from a reasonable woman. "I am so glad you got our invitation." "Hello, Elaine. I know it might feel a little unusual," she said. "But Brianna is a very mature young woman and she believes in starting fresh. She thought it would mean a great deal to everyone if the people from Marcus's past could witness this new chapter with open hearts." "That's generous of her," I said. "It is. It really is. And I think, Nora, that showing up would say a great deal about your character. About how far you've come. You know, Marcus always said you were resilient." Something settled along my jaw, not irritation, not the old familiar ache, something more like the moment a number you've been carrying finally reaches its correct column. "He said that," I said. "He did. He thought the world of your resilience. It was just the two of you wanted different things. That happens. No one is the villain." "No one is the villain," I repeated. "Exactly. So we did hope you'd come. Just to show everyone that there's no hard feeling. That you're in a good place. It would be such a gracious gesture, Nora. You were always so gracious." "What time does it start?" I said. A brief pause, the pause of a woman recalibrating because the conversation had gone more smoothly than expected. 2:00. At Kellner. "I'll be there," I said. "Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. And Nora, just you, of course. It's a seated dinner, so we have to be precise about numbers." "Of course," I said. "You are just so, you always were the gracious one. Marcus never appreciated that. Between us. I'll see you Saturday, Elaine." I set the phone down. Donna came over that evening and I told her about the call. She stood in my kitchen with her coat still on and her keys in her hand and said, "Nora, don't." "I'm going," I said. "She told you to come alone." I know what she said. "And?" I started filling the kettle. "Those are his children, Donna. She doesn't know that." "No," I said. "She doesn't." Donna stood there a moment longer. Then she set her keys on the counter and took her coat off. I made tea. After she left, the house settled into its evening quiet. The children were asleep. The hallway nightlight made a small yellow rectangle on the floor. 3 pairs of small shoes were lined up by the front door, largest to smallest, the way Mateo always arranged them because he had decided at age 3 that this was the correct way and had enforced it ever since. I looked at those shoes for a long time. Saturday morning I was up at 6:45. I dressed B first, then Lucia, then Mateo, who protested the collared shirt until I told him it had buttons and buttons were for important days. I braided Lucia's hair. I found Bea's left shoe under the radiator. I made oatmeal and cut the fruit and wiped 3 faces with a warm cloth. I changed my own dress once. I went to the back bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. I took out the mortgage payment book, dark blue cover, Fairview Street address printed on the front, for years of payment stubs filled in by my hand, the column of dates running down the left margin like a quiet record of every month I had held this house together alone. I put it in my bag. I buckled 3 car seats. I drove to Kellner Banquet Hall. We arrived at 2:14 p.m. Kellner was a converted Victorian building on the east side of Columbus with high ceilings and arched windows and the particular smell of venues that have hosted 1,000 celebrations and absorbed the energy of all of them. White ribbon on every chair. Tall floral arrangements. A string quartet finishing a piece near the entrance as guests filtered toward their seats. Elaine saw us first. She was standing near the guest book table in a pale blue dress, speaking with a woman I didn't recognize. She turned, saw me, began to smile, and then her eyes moved to the three small people holding my hands, and the smile stopped mid-construction. "Nora," she said. "Elaine," I said. "You look wonderful." She looked at Mateo. At Lucia. At B. She looked back at me. I thought I said. "You said the dinner was seated," I said. "Children don't need seats. They can sit on laps." Before she could answer, a murmur moved through the guests nearest the entrance. I looked toward the front of the room. Marcus was standing beside the altar with his groomsmen, turned toward the doors the way grooms turn when something in the room shifts. He saw me. Then he saw Mateo. Then Lucia. Then B. I watched his face very carefully. I had prepared for several versions of this moment and I was ready for most of them. I had not quite prepared for how completely still he went. Not startled, not angry, still the way a person goes still when the ground has moved and they are not yet sure what else is about to. His best man said something to him. He didn't respond. Elaine crossed the room to him quickly, her heels sharp on the hardwood. She leaned up and said something in his ear. He looked at her, then back at me. I stood where I was. Then Elaine turned and came back, and the warmth in her face had been replaced with something harder and more efficient. "Nora," she said, her voice low, "I need you to tell me right now who these children are." "They're mine," I said. "I can see they're yours. I'm asking who their father is." Around us the nearest guests had gone quiet. The string quartet was between pieces. She looked at the children again, the kind of look that inventories rather than sees, and I watched her put together what she was realizing. Her jaw tightened. She took one step toward me and dropped her voice further. "You can't do this here," she said. "This is his wedding day. Whatever you think you are owed, this is not the time or the place, and I would expect a woman of your—" "Elaine," I said. She stopped. "You invited me here to show that I was gracious. That I had no hard feelings. That I was in a good place." "I did." "Then let me show you." I reached into my bag. I found the mortgage payment book by feel, the worn edge of the cover, the slight ridge where the binding had softened with handling. I took it out. I opened it slowly to the first page, where my name sat alone on the account line, and then I unfolded the payment record all the way, the long accordion of stubs extending across my palm, for years of monthly entries in my own handwriting. I laid it flat on the gift table beside me. "This is the Fairview Street mortgage," I said, my voice carrying just far enough. "My name is on every line. 4 years. $63,000 in principal and interest carried alone. While I raise 3 children who share their father's eyes." Elaine stared at the payment book. "You brought them here to embarrass him," she said. Her voice had the particular flatness of a woman trying to hold a position she already knows has failed. "After everything that family did for you? You were always so ungrateful underneath." I let that land. I did not answer it. "You brought me here," I said. "You wanted gracious. This is what gracious looks like when it has had 4 years to find its footing." The woman Elaine had been speaking with near the guest book had not moved. Neither had the 2 couples behind her. I did not look at them directly. I did not need to. A voice came from my left. Young, clear, uncertain. "Are they Marcus's?" I turned. Brianna Castellano was standing at the edge of the aisle in her wedding dress, a simple ivory column dress, her flowers held at her side. She was looking not at me but at the children, at Mateo's jaw and Lucia's eyes and B.A.'s way of standing with her chin slightly lifted, which was a thing Marcus did in photographs. She looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at the floor. The room was very quiet now. The string quartet had stopped entirely. Somewhere near the back a chair shifted. Brianna turned to me. Her face was composed in the way that takes effort, the effort of a person deciding in real time what kind of person they are going to be. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't," I said. "I think," Brianna said quietly, "that I need a few minutes." She walked back toward the bridal suite. The wedding coordinator followed her. I folded the mortgage book and put it back in my bag. I looked at Marcus once more. He was still standing at the front of the room, his hands at his sides, his face doing the work of a man trying to find something to say. He did not find it. "Goodbye, Marcus," I said. I took Mateo's hand. Mateo took Lucia's hand. Lucia held BEA's. We walked back through the arched doors and out into the afternoon. The air outside was mild and carried the smell of cut grass and the distant sound of a parking lot. Bea asked if we could get ice cream. I said yes. 18 months have passed since we walked out of Kellner Banquet Hall. I am sitting at the kitchen table on Fairview Street on a Sunday morning, and I have just written the last entry in the mortgage payment book. The final stub. Paid in full. I fill in the date, press down on the pen the way I always do on the last line of anything important, and set it on the table in front of me. The cover is soft now from years of handling. The corners have rounded. The account number on the front is slightly faded. I have been holding this house alone since the children were the size of a memory. Now they are almost 5 and they take up a considerable amount of the space in every room, and I find that I do not mind this at all. For months after the wedding, a letter arrived from a family law attorney in Marcus's name, raising the matter of parental rights and requesting a response. My attorney replied in 3 sentences. The matter has not been raised again. Donna comes over on Sundays now. She will be here in an hour with pastries and the specific energy of a woman who has never once said I told you so and never will. Marcus's wedding did not happen, or did not happen that day. I don't know the details and I have not sought them. What I know is that Brianna Castellano sent me a card 6 weeks later. No return address. Inside she had written only, "I'm sorry you weren't told sooner. I hope you're well." I read it once and put it in the drawer with the other things I don't need to revisit. The children are starting school in the fall. Mateo has already informed me that he will need a new backpack because his current one has a small scuff on the left strap that he finds unacceptable. I have told him we will discuss it. We will probably discuss it several more times before September. There is a thing I have learned in 4 years of solving problems that present themselves one at a time, and it is this: the people who leave believing you need them to survive are often the same people most undone by the evidence that you didn't. I pick up the mortgage book and hold it in both hands for a moment. Then I put it in the drawer with the things worth keeping. The coffee is still hot. Outside, I can hear 2 of the children arguing about something in the backyard, and the third one mediating, and the particular sound of a Sunday morning in a house where everyone knows they belong. If this story found something in you, leave it in the comments. And if you've ever had to build something from nothing because someone walked out and assumed you couldn't, I'd like to hear about it.